Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And on this segment of the show, I am very pleased to have family law attorney Mario Ventrelli of the Ventrelli Simon LLC law firm, calling in all the way from Northfield, Illinois. Now, Mario, who has a wealth of experience in the area of family law, will be talking to you today about how to manage your divorce without breaking the bank. Now, that sounds like something, every person out there who is in divorce, facing divorce, thinking about divorce, or has gone through divorce should be interested in. So if you can relate to that topic, you just might want to give yourself a break. Go and grab yourself your favorite cup of tea or coffee or a cold drink. Log out of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or anything else which may cause a distraction. And you know something? You might even want to grab yourself a notepad and pen and take some notes as we listen in to what Mario has to share with us today. So with that said, let's not keep him waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Mario.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy day, Mario. So let's just jump in with our first question. Briefly, describe the kinds of people you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help.
Sure. In my firm, we represent a fairly wide swath of people, everyone from business owners, executives, and professionals to school teachers and firemen and administrative assistants. So we cut a pretty wide cloth there. As far as the types of situations they find themselves in when they come to us, that can vary. We have many people who come to us before any divorce filing has been made. They're in the sort of pre-planning stage, and they want to know what kind of things they can do to prepare themselves for an impending divorce, whether they're the ones who are filing or not. We also get another type of situation where somebody maybe has just been served with divorce papers, and sometimes that comes out of the blue, and they really don't know where to turn. We also will get a fair amount of folks who are in the midst of a divorce, and maybe they're displeased with their attorney or they're displeased with the course that the case has taken, and they're wondering if we can come in and help them out in a different or a new way. And then lastly, we'll have folks that maybe were divorced a year ago or 5 years ago or even longer, and they're having what are known as post-decree issues, things that come up after the divorce is over that need to be tended to, sometimes in court and sometimes out of court. And there's a fair amount of folks that come to us for those situations as well.
Okay, so now that we know who you serve, it's a wide array of people. Before we go any further, Mario, it must be said that anything you share with us from this point on is not legal advice or legal assistance. It's purely for the purpose of sharing information. Now, with that said then, Mario, I am sure that while you're out there helping these people, that you come across many misconceptions. People come to you, they believe that the information that they have is true. Maybe they've heard it from a friend, a colleague. Maybe they've done some research online and have brought some content and believe that to be true. However, you have to spend some quality time debunking those myths, debunking those untruths. So of all of the misconceptions that you come across, what's the most common one that you have to deal with on a day-to-day basis?
You make such a good point, Stuart, in terms of folks talking to friends or relatives who have had divorces and are in the midst of divorce and sort of listening to their stories and then assuming that the same would apply to their situation. That's a problem all the time. But to the topic that we're talking about today and sort of how to minimize the financial impact on your life when you're experiencing a divorce, the biggest misconception I come across on that topic is that folks seem to think the lawyers are in complete control of the litigation process and what transpires. And frankly, that's not true. The reality is, and this is really sort of the central theme here, is that you, as a divorce litigant, need to take part and be an active participant in your divorce. And if you're feeling that the lawyers on either side are dictating the course or how much litigation occurs and how it occurs, then something needs to change. You control the situation. Obviously, we have a third party, that's the judge, who will make rulings. But as far as how you go about things, you are in control of that, not the lawyers.
So, with that said, Mario, and obviously keeping your client's confidentiality in mind, can you share with us an example of how you have helped someone, or even how you would go about helping someone who comes to you with those challenges, that misconception you just mentioned, and what kind of transformational results you would be able to gain for them?
Sure. This particular misconception comes to us many times with the client who perhaps has an ongoing divorce. They've been going along in the system for a period of time, and they're finding themselves unhappy with the process or unhappy with the representation, and they come to us and say, how can I make this change? And so recently I had someone come to me with that very issue, and that was probably several months ago. And when I sat down with this client, we talked about all the various facets of her case and whether they revolved around custody or finances. And what I found is in that particular instance, there wasn't any communication between the lawyer, or there wasn't sufficient communication between the lawyer and this client. Just sort of seemed to be feeling like she had gotten her belt loop hooked around the back of a roller coaster, and she was just getting dragged along. And so what we did is we sat down and we cut her divorce case into categories and segments. And then we talked about each segment and how and what she wanted. And then I advised her how to best go about getting those things, whether it was filing a motion with the court or serving a certain kind of subpoena or other discovery to address each individual issue. I told her about what the cost would be. I told her about my advice as to the likely outcome of taking that step. And then we made a joint decision. And, as lawyers, sometimes we get awards and we get accolades from organizations and things like that, and those are nice. But the nicest thing about this particular situation is that I bumped into another colleague of mine who happened to be friends with this client. Didn't represent her wisely, but happened to be friends with her. And she said to me that since coming to see me, and since sort of taking charge and becoming a participant in her divorce, that her entire countenance had changed. She seemed like a lighter person, and she seemed more ready to face the inevitable challenge of this divorce. And that, to me, was more important than sometimes the awards and accolades we might get from other organizations. Very happy about that outcome.
So just as a reminder, Mario, today we are talking about how to manage your divorce without breaking the bank. Now, with that in mind, and for those people who are tuning in right now and they are wanting to know more, what's the most common but unknown pitfall that you'd like to bring to their attention today, no matter what situation they find themselves in, no matter how they feel?
I think if I had an overarching piece of advice on this topic, it would be to not simply take action for the sake of action. When you come to a lawyer, you ask, what can be done? And if the lawyer can't answer that question, then there's an issue. But let's assume for the moment the lawyer knows what can be done. That's not where the inquiry ends. You have to ask what should be done. And so, for example, you might have the ability to file a motion with the court and ask for a certain kind of relief. But whether or not that motion should be filed or should be filed at this time, or whether or not a certain subpoena should go out or another discovery request should go out at a specific time, that's knowing what should be done and when. And so it's not just about knowing what's possible, it's knowing about what is right in terms of your case. And relative to people sort of keeping the lid on their divorce and in terms of financial cost, I've said kind of globally, be an active participant. But let me say a few specifics about that, because people probably would like to know what specifically can they do.
Sure.
Number one, there's always a phase of a divorce called discovery, where parties are exchanging financial and sometimes other types of information. We will always, as lawyers, ask our clients to start gathering that information. And gathering that information and providing it to the lawyer in a timely and an organized way can cut down quantums of legal fees. I cannot tell you the amount of time that gets spent and the amount of dollars that get incurred fighting over things like discovery and gathering and responding to requests. That is absolutely where a client can minimize their costs by just being cooperative and doing what the lawyer asks in terms of information gathering. And I will say this, for those folks who are even considering a divorce in the future, or perhaps fearing that a divorce is in their future, start gathering the information now. Make yourself a balance sheet of the assets and the debts that you know of. Take a look at the prior tax returns so that you know at least somewhat what the financial picture is. The same should go for your expenses and the costs of running your household. I can't tell you the number of times people come in and I say, we're going to sit down and analyze your expenses and your income, and I'll get 1,000-yard stare and a response that somebody doesn't really know what it costs to run his or her household. Those are things that you really need to school yourself on before you even start the process.
These are some great insights that you're sharing with us, Mario. So thank you so much. It's going to be really useful for that listener who's tuning in right now. So let me ask you this, because I'm quite curious now, Mario. How many years have you been practicing family law?
A little over 22, if my math is right. I started practicing in 95.
Okay, so 2 decades and a bit in layman's terms, all right? So, okay, that's quite a long time. So within that span of time, 22 years, would it be safe to say that you've helped hundreds of people with their divorce cases?
I would suppose. I've never sort of sat back and counted it, but it's been an awful lot of folks because it's the only thing I've ever done.
On any given day then, when you wake up in the morning and you have a full day's work ahead of you helping those clients who are wanting to, manage their divorce without breaking the bank. They're wanting to save money throughout the divorce process. Even after working with hundreds of clients and within 22 years, how does Mario Ventrelli feel on a day like that?
How do I feel?
Yeah.
That's a great question. Divorce is a very particular practice. It's different than, I think, any other type of law practice there is. And you are dealing with people on a very human level. The upside of that is you get some instantaneous response and feedback. And so when I can help folks and just lighten the load a bit, that's when I feel best. Somebody said once that next to the death of a loved one, the most traumatic event people can go through at times is a divorce. And if I can lighten that load just by simply telling people what to expect, then I've had a good day.
Fantastic. So let's just continue talking about you then, Mario, because you shared a lot of great information so far. So I'm absolutely sure the listener would want to know a little bit more about you. So if you could just spend a few moments sharing a little bit about your background and your formal education, as well as your experience as it relates to the topic of family law.
Sure. As I was just mentioning, I've been practicing since 1995, and I've only ever practiced in the area of matrimonial law. For the vast majority of my legal career, I worked with the nation's largest matrimonial law firm before I opened my own practice in 2014. Over the course of time, I've represented a lot of different kinds of folks, everyone from professional athletes and political personalities to school teachers and police officers. As far as my education, I am a graduate of the DePaul University College of Law, where I am also an adjunct professor. I also teach for the National Institute of Trial Advocacy in Colorado, and I speak quite a bit on a local and national level to groups with the American Bar Association or various state bar associations.
Mario, before we continue, I'd just like to clear something up because I have been saying throughout this conversation that you have been working within the field of family law. However, you just mentioned matrimonial law. So I'm just a layman. Please explain what's the difference? Matrimonial law, family law.
I don't know that there is a difference. Family law is generally what we refer to it as, but that covers a multitude of things. We typically think of it as covering divorce, and that is the primary focus. But sometimes we have parentage cases, and those would be cases where folks who are unmarried have children together. But family law, I sometimes stay away from that word just because it can get confused with sort of wills and estates and estate planning issues and things like that, and that's not really our focus. Right. Our focus is things relating to marriages or children not of marriages.
Thank you for clearing that up, Mario. So let me ask you this. We're coming towards the end of the show, and I'd just like you, just for a moment, just to picture the kinds of people who come to you for your help, and they're wanting to know more about managing their divorce without breaking the bank. Now, with that picture in mind, Mario, what final thoughts would you like to share with them before we finish up with our last question for today?
Be a participant. I know I said that before, but it is your life, and the lawyer will be a part of your life for as long as that divorce goes on. But at the end, it'll be what the individual has to live with. And so meet with the lawyer, talk with the lawyer, do the things that the lawyer asks so that you can minimize your costs. Part of the reason I started my own firm is I wanted to provide services to people at a reasonable cost. And I took my experience from a large firm, actually the nation's largest, and I tried to bring that experience to people at a little bit lower cost. But even with that, so much of what goes into the totality of the legal cost is the way that people conduct themselves throughout the litigation. We don't have total control because there's another side, but there are many, many things, whether it's cooperating on discovery, whether it is making intelligent choices about what things to do in and out of court, whether it is about choosing alternative dispute resolution as a way of getting things done. There are a multitude of things people can do to avoid breaking the bank. Because after this divorce is over, you have to live with the results.
So, Mario, if there is someone out there who has been listening in right now, and, maybe it's a Mary, maybe it's a John, maybe it's a divorcing couple who are both tuning in at the same time, and they feel like they want to know more about managing their divorce without breaking the bank. They feel the need to, as you put it yourself, lighten the load. If that's the case, what's the quickest way for them to find you?
Well, certainly we can be reached by telephone, and that number would be 847-505-0807. You can also visit our website at www.ventrellisimon.com. But the quickest way is probably to just give us a ring and set up a consultation. Sometimes just having that consultation and sort of dispelling some misconceptions or talking about potential outcomes is enough to make someone feel a little bit better about what's coming ahead.
Okay, I'd just love to stay here and chat with you for so much longer because I just get a feeling we're just scratching the surface of the insights that you could share with us today, Mario. However, we are out of time. So once more, folks, as a reminder, we have been speaking to family law attorney Mario Ventrelli. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Mario. You have certainly demonstrated without a doubt that you are a true educator and advocate for your client's success. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Stewart. I appreciate it.
You are so welcome. And an even bigger thank you to you, the listener. Maybe you are a Mary, maybe you are a John, maybe you're a divorcing couple. Whatever the case is, thank you for joining us on this what I can only describe as a very insightful and informative discussion with one of the top family law attorneys in the Northfield, Illinois area today. Again, his name is Mario Ventrelli. Make sure you do check him out, give him a call, send him an email. Whatever you do, I am absolutely sure that you're going to be in good hands. So that's it, folks. Once again, my name is Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading family law professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.